Hi, everybody. This is Jacqueline Cromwell here for the Homeschool Hangout. I hope everybody's having a great week. This week, I am joined by the fabulous Michelle White, a friend of mine, but also a fellow blogger who blogs over at Preschoolers and Peace. I think that could be false advertising, Michelle, but apparently she claims you can have it.
Peace depends on the person perceiving it.
Definitely. And she also writes over on the Hedgewa blog. Now, can you explain what Hedgewa is? I always forget what it stands for.
You know what? I'm not even sure if I could tell you.
Then I don't feel so bad.
Educating something. It's a lovely, they have a fantastic magazine, and so I enjoy writing for their blog. But how's that? I don't even know.
It's a great site. I've been reading it for a while, I think when it first started. So, Michelle, why don't you explain the composition and ages of your family to kick this off?
Okay, well, I have one husband and 5 children. They are 10, 8, 7, 3, and 2. So it's 2 girls and 3 boys at the bottom.
Very nice. Now, in full disclosure, it's a small world. Michelle and I actually went to the same high school. Didn't actually know each other well then, but our kids actually do homeschool choir together, and we found each other after all these years.
Yeah.
And it's so funny.
Yeah, small world. Very small world.
It really, really is. So let's jump into some of these great tips you have today, Michelle.
Okay.
I hear it all the time. I have a preschooler or 2 preschoolers and older kids, and I feel like I'm shortchanging my older kids because they never learn. What is your first tip for people who are homeschooling with preschoolers?
Well, the first thing I would say is relax. It is super important to not take yourself too seriously and just take it easy. My husband and I have a philosophy that we are teaching our children to learn and to love to learn. It's not just about having school at a certain time of the day. So if your baby has a blowout, or your toddler is super clingy and you're not able to get school done when you had it on the schedule, that is okay. So my number 1 tip is always to just relax.
Very good. I think that's just a life motto we all need. Kids help us realize it.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. So when it comes down to the actual doing it, what do you do to keep these toddlers out of your hair?
Well, I would say we have several different ways, and a lot of it depends on the season that your family's in. So I would say one major way is that we have things for our little guys that are specifically for the school time. So like my 3-year-old, I went to Target and I got him some cheapo markers because he never gets to use markers any other time. So he has some markers that are just for him, and he only gets them when we're having time at the table with everyone else. So when we do history or science and we're doing worksheets or whatever, and the other big kids are there, he gets to sit there with us and he's got his markers out. Now my 2-year-old, he has to be in the high chair because, well, he gets markers too, but I have to kind of strap him in because he's a mover and that keeps him kind of occupied. But having things that are just for school time, like special toys or special books or a coloring book with the markers, stuff like that is a great way to get the kids to understand, okay, it's school time, and it keeps them busy for 10 or 15 minutes.
Hey, you take it when you can get it. And
exactly.
Do not feel bad with the high chair. We did that a lot. Of homeschool time meant that the baby was in the high chair. That was it. She had no choice if she was going to be in the room with us. But let's be honest, as much as you want to give them special homeschool-only toys, what do you do when that is just not cutting it, or where they just want to be in the middle of everything? What do you do then?
Well, we are in a season, our 2 youngest are only 15 months apart. Our youngest child was adopted, and not that that has anything to do with it, but he's very close in age to our number 4. So we have had to try a few different things. One thing that we use a lot in our family is we have a giant play yard. So it's like a giant baby gate that's in a circle, and it sits in the middle of our living room, and my 2-year-old can sit in there and play and be very happy because he can see us, and that keeps him safe, because safety is really truly an issue when you've got a 2-year-old boy who wants to climb on everything. So that's one of those things that we do when they're not cooperating, is we're like, okay, you need to have time in the play yard. The 3-year-old sometimes does the same thing. So that's one way that we handle that. Another way we handle that sometimes is we have room time where the 3-year-old will have time by himself in his room I'll put up a baby gate over his door, and then he just plays in his room. Now, sometimes that means we are doing school literally in the hallway on the other side of the gate, but he knows we're there and we're good. So you just kind of have to think outside the box sometimes.
That's a great idea. I think the box can be so constraining of, this is what school's supposed to look like. Everyone's sitting in a line, looking at their papers, not talking to anybody.
Right, doing the Pledge of Allegiance or something like that.
Oh, of course. Of course. And writing in cursive at 6 months.
Right, exactly.
You know, and speaking Latin, of course.
Right. And that's the thing, is that with homeschooling, we've all chosen to homeschool for various reasons, but I believe one of them that's consistent for most people is that the freedom that is offered through homeschooling, if it's the freedom to be more academic or less academic or whatever your reason is, freedom is what homeschooling brings. And so to think that we have to do it a certain way simply because maybe some book we read or a speaker that we heard or whatever, that's just ridiculous. So embrace the freedom that we have as homeschoolers.
Definitely, and invest in baby gates. That's always my number one thing.
You do those two things and you're good.
Right. People are like, oh, I don't have a baby gate. I'm like, how do you pee by yourself when they're little? I mean, come on. You lock them in a room you know is totally safe, and then you go to the bathroom alone. It's delightful.
You're supposed to go to the bathroom alone? I didn't know that was possible.
It is. Now, let's be honest. Now that my kids are older, we finally have taken down almost every single baby gate in the house.
Yeah.
I still leave the bathroom door open so that I hear if they start to fight.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll leave them doing math, and I'll go to the bathroom, and then all of a sudden you'll hear, toot, toot, toot. Will you guys be quiet and just do your math for a minute?
Yeah, exactly. Let me pee in private.
Right. Lordy, lordy. Okay, so when those two things don't work, or you want to include them more, what do you suggest we do?
Well, one of the things that my blog partner and I write a lot about at Preschoolers in Peace is something called circle time. Kendra Fletcher she's the founder of preschoolersinpeace.com, and she has written an amazing ebook called Circle Time. And the idea of circle time is those things that you can do as a family, or the most of you together, maybe at the beginning of your day or at lunchtime or whenever you choose. But that's literally all the family together. So in my family right now, what that looks like, it's very, very small, very short, because they have like 10-second attention spans. But what that means for us is we're doing the ABCs, we go over a few colors, and we're learning like bigger, smaller, and then, but at other times we've introduced the calendar. We might do some memory work that we're working on as a family. If I can keep them going, we'll read a story together or part of our read alouds. But that's one way I get the little guys interested as well. I'll be sitting on the floor with them, and we will read a book and we'll play blocks or whatever. But that circle time is super, super important to us because it gets us all involved for at least that one part of the day.
That's great. I mean, I kind of did it on the other side. Like we did like joint history, and so we'd have like reading time, and if they wanted to be in it, they could. Otherwise, they had to go away. Yeah,
well, that's pretty much circle time. You're just doing it for history. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Right. We still do that, as a matter of fact. All my kids will still line up. And what's funny is, and I've seen pictures on your Facebook of older kids working with younger kids and being with them. Yes. I know your oldest and your youngest. How much do you utilize that as actually part of school?
It goes through phases. There are times when I've assigned a bit more of a rigid schedule, so I know that I hate the word schedule, more of a routine where this child, I have to like work with one child because they're learning to read, for example. So I'll work with this one child, and I'll tell maybe my older child, okay, I want you to work with the 2-year-old and play wedgets, or take him outside on the scooter or whatever. So we do that sometimes. It just kind of depends on what's happening. All of our kids can read right now. By the way, teaching reading is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Second only to potty training. So when I'm teaching a child to read, I really need to focus. So during those times, I definitely will assign it. But our kids we're really quite fortunate that our oldest ones really like spending time with the younger ones. So if I have to say, hey, work with the 3-year-old for just a few minutes and it's no big deal, they're happy to do that, yeah.
I think that is, once again, going back to talking about the fact we all homeschool for our own reasons. I can say for me, and I'm going to assume for you just because I know how your kids are together, for us, family unity was a huge benefit of homeschooling. These are your siblings. They'll be with you the rest of your life. Learn to like each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for real. And so it's like, even though you may not really want to play blocks with your brother, too bad. Do it for 15 minutes and then you're done. And you know what? We use a timer sometimes, because during those times when I'm like, listen, I know you're not happy, but this is the way it's going to be. I'll set the timer for 15 minutes. When the timer goes off, you're done. And that makes a big difference, too, because they realize, oh, it's not going to be forever. Yeah.
Yes, because just like us, they need a break sometimes from everybody else, too. Sure. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, for real.
Both of us having large families, and the sweet kids, but the large families.
Yeah, they need to have time by themselves.
Oh, definitely. Okay, I love, when we were talking about this online, you mentioned that it's a marathon and not a sprint. I hear from so many homeschoolers, my kid's in kindergarten and isn't reading fluently, and I can't, I have to pay attention to the baby, and I feel like I'm chipping their education. And I'm like, I'm sorry, they're 6? Calm down.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah, you know what? I was just talking to someone the other day, and her child was 6, and the child's currently in school, and she's going to bring him home to homeschool for 2nd grade. And she said, "Oh, I don't know what curriculum to buy, and I don't have and she has 2 twins at the bottom." And I was like, "You know what? Can I give you some advice?" And she said, "Yeah." She was really interested. I said, "Go to the library, check out some books, go to the park and play and read books together and dig up some worms and I said, particularly because he's a 6-year-old boy. And I said, you know what, he is reading, which is super. I said, help him to love to learn. And that's what I tell a lot of our readers and other people that I meet is it is not it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not like we have to check every box and do every subject, and if we don't teach it to them this semester, they're never going to learn it. Because, honestly, you and I went to public school, and how many things did we not learn in school? Okay? Heaps and heaps of things. And that's one of the things I love about homeschooling is I'm learning so much as I teach my children. And so we don't have to teach them everything. We need to instill in them the love of learning so that they can learn to go learn, so that they can understand, if I don't know this, I can go and find out for myself. So it is not like we have to do everything right now and they're never, or else they're going to fail. So we need to pace ourselves, because if we don't, we will burn out. And then it's not happy mommy time, So we need to just be careful and have some fun and love on our kids, and just take a day and just go to the library and read books, or whatever it takes to just get some of that excitement back.
I love those reading days and the
yes.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I called Pride and Prejudice school when my oldest girl was in 1st grade, and we all sat and watched Pride and Prejudice for like 2 days.
That's literature, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, oh, totally. I totally called it literature. And if anyone ever tells my boys that Jane Austen is for girls, I will hurt them.
Absolutely. You know what? And yeah, exactly. Well, I have a friend, and I love this, and I think I'm thinking about doing this sometime. She goes to the library, and she'll pick out a book from an author from A to Z. So they will come home with 26 picture books for an author from every letter of the alphabet. And I think, that's a great idea, because it exposes you to books that you wouldn't normally read. And everyone loves picture books. Her oldest is going into 6th grade, so it's not like he's a little kid. But everyone loves to sit around and read books, and that's okay, because that's still learning. So that's part of that marathon thing, is seeing the long picture and not just this week.
Definitely. And I know that is one thing when you have readers, I have readers, and my oldest is in 7th grade going into 8th grade this year. Mm-hmm. I don't know when that happened. But yes, my kids read some more mature, and when I say mature, I mean, thick books,
Yeah, sure.
But at the same time, I jokingly say I'm not a book snob. They may read comic books, but they love picture books, especially when they can share it with their younger siblings, because then everyone's laughing.
Yes. Yeah, well, my oldest girl is going into 6th grade. She came to me a couple weeks ago and said, "Mommy, will you read me a story?" And I said, "Sure. All read you a story. So you know what? It just, you don't get too old for that. And that is those relationships. It's the kind of bonding that we have an opportunity to do. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. I think that is something that I know for me, I have to caution myself to not rush through.
Yes.
You know.
For real.
Yeah, it's okay. So now I had a question. You were talking about having a school time only activities, and we were talking about organizing last week.
Mm-hmm.
How do you corral all that stuff? Because preschoolers, I find, have lots of stuff.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is where it's going to get a little extreme. We are very simple people because we have moved a lot. You know that we used to live in New Zealand, and we've moved internationally. So because of that, we don't have a lot of stuff around because I always think, if I had to pack all my things in 10 suitcases, would this make it? So we don't have a lot of stuff. We have some really good toys that we like. So what I do is the ones that we have them in those plastic boxes with the lids, you know, the little, you know, the things, the lids that stick on. Okay. And we have them marked, and then we have them stored in our schoolroom. Well, what I'll do is I will have, like, Monday, play with this. Tuesday, play with the trucks. Wednesday, play with the trains. Thursday, play with the blocks. Friday, play with Play-Doh. That kind of thing. So he knows that on this day I'm going to play with this, and this day I'm going to play with that. Doesn't always work. Sometimes we do it out of order because we're just crazy. But that way we just keep them in those boxes. They're easy to stack and get out of the way.
Oh, perfect. I know that is one of those things that I was talking to somebody else about, preschoolers, toddlers, that age overall, and I've said they're like, they have so many toys and they can't find anything to do. I'm like, have you told them what to go do? Not that you say you can't play with anything else, but it's they don't have that idea sometimes.
Right, right. And our 3-year-old has a speech disability, and so for a long time he couldn't express himself. And so we had pictures, and so he could point to the pictures of what he wanted. And that, yeah, super easy. But we really, I mean, we have some cars, we have some trains, we have some blocks, we have some little people things, and we have some balls, and pretty much that's it. Because we just got so tired of having to pick up all those stupid little pieces. So we've kept it pretty simple.
I'm kind of gone the way where I'm kind of going the other way of we have so much. You know, those things of like we have a little people collection that is ridiculous. To the point, though, we have decided that we love little people, so I think we're going to keep it for when we're grandparents.
And that's okay.
But we always tried to do that where, like, we've got, like, Mega Blocks forever, and you could play with the Mega Blocks and the little people and the Legos and make a city. We didn't need a whole bunch of licensed, you know, here's the Spider-Man toy, and here's the Strawberry Shortcake toy, and here's the...
Right. Yeah, no, we really like to have open-ended toys that use their imagination and were sturdy. I don't do cheap plastic stuff.
No. I do joke around, though, that my dad, when he was alive, he would send them that stuff no matter what. What do you want to get the kids? Well, here's the kind of stuff we like. And I always joke around that they had plenty of that stuff when Grandpa was alive, and it's still getting passed around the house. So, you know, these were his only grandkids, and I was a little tolerant.
I understand, yeah. It's fine.
And I didn't feel bad when it broke, and you had to throw it away, either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
It's so crazy. Okay, so going back to the reading, everyone's worst subject. And now, in full disclosure, I am not the driver on potty training or reading. That's Jeremy's job.
You know, I have an ongoing deal. Anyone who will potty train my children, I will pay them $100.
Yeah, that's not high enough. Sorry.
That's generally what I'm hearing.
I mentioned it to my Jeremy, and he says, I'm sorry, $100? Did she expect this to be done in 5 minutes?
Golly, high expectations.
Your offer was discussed over here in lab.
Okay, all right.
But what is your favorite reading tool?
Like how to teach reading? Okay, probably Bob books. Have you heard of those?
Oh, yes.
All right, so Bob books, they sell them at Costco. And, you know, 6 months out of the year they'll carry them. And they are like $13 for a set, and they are super cheap. And I actually have a friend who lives a couple hours from here. She has a website called Teaching Reading with Bob Books. And but the Bob books they're not expensive. They're great, super repetitive with phonics and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably my number one best resource is using Bob books.
Now, did you do any of the workbooks? Our favorite workbook for the first couple kids, we didn't use them for the last couple kids, was Get Ready, Get Set, Go for the Code.
Oh yeah, Explode the Code. Yeah, we used Explode the Code. The first 3 kids. We used those pre-reading ones, and then we used the kind of 1 through 3-ish, I think. Yeah, I liked those a lot. Not expensive. Great phonics program. 2 of my kids kind of taught themselves to read, and then one of my children needed a little bit of extra help, and I ended up using All About Reading with her. All About Reading is from All About Learning Press, and it's a really good multisensory approach to reading. It uses a method called the Orton-Gillingham method, which is designed for kids with learning disabilities. So if you have a child that's struggling with reading, it's a really, really great way because they have to use their hands. It's just a really good extra approach. So with my 2 younger kids who probably will have need some extra help, I'm going to do the same one with them. So All About Reading is a really good resource.
I liked because they make All About Spelling.
They do. That's
right. I reviewed that years ago, and I loved it. My problem was it was just so teacher intensive.
Yes.
And my kids didn't need that extra intensity with the spelling.
Right.
I say that we are now doing spelling because apparently one of my natural readers is not a natural speller.
They don't go hand in hand, unfortunately.
Yes, I was really, really hoping. I know one of my favorite tools, once you're done with Bob books, which I never purchased, I just took them out from the library.
They have them at the library?
They do. You go onto the computer system for Fresno County and request. The only set of starter Bob books is up in Oakhurst, so they have to bring it down the hill.
Okay.
But Abeka makes a set of books. Now, I got a really old set from a girlfriend who passed them down to me, but it's like 48 books, and they progressively get a little harder. And when my kids were done with those, they were reading novels.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking intensive reading ability, but with the same Bob theory, it just gets harder.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I have a little story. When I started school, I was in a private school for kindergarten and first grade, and we used Abeka. And did you know that the books they sell now are the very same books that I used over 30 years ago?
You know what? Literature, when you find something, keep going.
Yeah. Abeka's reading program or phonics program is really good. It's a little expensive, though. So if you have to buy it, it's going to cost some money. But it definitely does work. If your child is a typical kind of learning in a typical way, then Abeka would definitely work. As long as if you can either afford to buy it new or are able to buy it secondhand, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have the full curriculum. We just got they have like a little box, the little readers. That's all we used.
Yeah.
And then that was special time with Daddy. See how I set that up so that, they needed bonding with Daddy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? You've avoided reading and potty training?
I mean, I helped. Don't get me wrong. I did the Get Ready, Get Set, Go for the Code with my older 2. Okay. I did all that. But that final push to reading, I jokingly say, I was an algebra tutor. Teaching people how to read, they knew how to do that before they got to me. This is not my problem. You need a geometry tutor, you need an algebra tutor, I am your girl. Okay. You want to write a proof, I'm on it. But yeah, I tend to get a little frustrated, but I think part of it too was the fact that my oldest is a boy. So I was a little befuddled when it came to potty training him, and he wasn't self-motivated.
Okay.
So finally, at some point, we just said, dude, you've never mentioned the toilet. You're going to sit on it 3 times a day with Dad. He's going to go potty. You're going to go potty. We're going to have a whole potty party here.
Right. Well, and actually, this brings up a point about how do you find time to potty train when you're homeschooling? So you've got little people, and you're trying to do school. Now, this is something I am immediately, right this very day, and dealing with because I'm trying to get my 2- and 3-year-old to decide to go on the toilet. Well, what I've had to do is we've actually had to kind of restructure our day so that I have time to focus on the potty training and still get school done because we school year-round, so we're still doing school. So we've actually had to move to afternoon and evening school, where in the mornings I'm really focused on my 2 little guys, and then in the afternoon when they nap, I'm doing school, and then when my husband finishes work, because he works from home, he finishes about 4-ish. And then he can get in, and we all finish school together. So that's another thing. When you've got little people at home, you have to kind of think outside the box. If it's going to work better for you to school in the afternoon and evening, then you go for it.
Definitely. I think it's about making it work. I talked about it last week, and I've mentioned this multiple times, of people shouldn't should on themselves. There's no prescription for the perfect way to make everything turn out wonderfully. Do what works for you.
That's right, absolutely. And again, that's the freedom that comes from homeschooling. We do not have to do things the way some book or author or whatever tells us to do it.
Yes. Now, my older kids enjoyed when we were potty training the last two. One, I'm pro-bribery, so I used a little bit of peer pressure with my youngest of when she finally was out of like pull-ups at night, because I cheated and used pull-ups, we had a party.
Absolutely.
We literally, because I had like 9 years of diapers straight, no break. So we bought the Avengers, we got pizza, we had parfaits, there was a party.
Well, I've been telling my 3-year-old, I'm like, hey, dude, if you just go on the toilet and do something, we will go get frozen yogurt. I mean, you don't even have to be dry. I'm just like, just sit on the toilet and do something. And so he talks about it, and when we drive by the yogurt place, he's like, oh, I'm going to get to go there. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to do something, man.
This is a look and do, not a look and see here.
Exactly.
Well, what we did is our kid who was not interested at all is because of course they didn't want to lay down and get their diapers changed anymore. And I mentioned part of the reason that my Jeremy does potty training, and he also taught them how to throw up in the toilet, is I have like bodily fluid issues.
Obviously.
Like I sympathetically puke. Well, now remember, when my little ones first started throwing up, I was pregnant, and I'm the person who could puke continuously through 9 months of pregnancy.
Okay.
So it didn't take much. And the last one, we joke around, she's number 4. She's kind of been raised by looking, oh, they do that, I should do that too. But it was, so we got the pull-ups, and at first it was he had to sit on the toilet 3 times a day, even though he didn't want to, on the potty. Then he had to produce to get the pull-up. Then he had to, and we just kept moving that bar back. You understand that you're sitting on this now, so we're not going to reward you the same. Right. And honestly, we take that same mentality into our homeschooling of we reward everybody for like completing books, but the easier it is for you, the smaller your reward in some ways, because we're rewarding your effort.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, not saying that we completely gyp the kid who math comes easy to her, but we do kind of do this was really hard for you and you persisted.
For real. Yeah, sure.
So we just kept sliding the bar on them. That's how we potty trained.
All right. Well, I will have to think about that one.
You see, and I was going to say for yours, it probably wouldn't work at this point, but I remember my Dolly getting potty trained with me, and we both had raisins and carob chips because I was raised in Monterey at that age.
Right. Carob chips.
And she couldn't eat her raisins and carob chips, so if I went potty, I got to eat hers too.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And yes, I do remember my own potty training. I'm a little odd, I admit that. It is what it is, right?
It is what it is, that's right. We're just grateful you are potty trained.
And you know what? I think that's something that all parents out there need to remember when they're going through that. Oh my goodness, how do I potty train the toddler? How do I get a kid to read? You know what? I think the goal is to create adults. So as long as by the end of the journey they can do all these things, we're good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that, again, that comes down to this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's the long-range goal that we're looking at.
Definitely. Well, that brings us to about the end of our show. It's about 2:30. I want to thank Michelle so much for joining me. And Michelle, tell everybody again where they can find you in the world.
Okay, I blog at preschoolersandpeace.com. You can find me on Twitter with at Michelle on the Go, or on Instagram. I love Instagram at Michelle on the Move. So again, preschoolersandpeace.com. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you inviting me to come.
Thank you. And we will see you all next week. If you have any suggestions of what we should talk about, any challenges that are going on in your life, let me know on our Google Plus page or tweet me at NerdMom and let me know, and I will make sure to make priority in our next show. Have a great week. Bye.